Hello everyone, today we are going to be looking at Thor. I do just want to start this with a warning that there is nothing massively special about my Thor to the next. He is another one of those characters where most people build him the same kind of way. I don't tend to play Thor a whole lot, and he is definitely not one of the characters I have focused on farming for a whole lot. However, I have been holding the top spot for Thor in Test Your Might, so I thought I would show how I like to build him regardless. I also do know about the infinite Bifrost glitch, I just don't care to use it personally, but if you do want to know how to do it, a simple YouTube search will show you, but I won't be showing it in this build here, as this build series is more aimed at endgame players. I probably don't need to explain to people how to build Thor's stats at this point. It's Valor, and finally some more Valor. You want to play him melee, make might your secondary stats, and if you want to make him ranged, make it precision. I generally like to play him as a sort of hybrid and have a bit of both, as I find it fun to be able to use all of Thor's moves melee and ranged. Resolve is subjective to the player's skill level, and you can adjust accordingly to what you personally need. Proficiency and intensity are not really needed on Thor, but a little bit can help here and there. My first piece is just a stat stick, mostly from the raid, that gives me a nice even spread of all the damage stats. I generally like Vibranium on my slot 1 and use power attacks for mobbing and signature for bosses. You can get this third perk you can see on this piece here for another 18% damage, but I have not been blessed with one of these with Might, Valor and Precision on. I also do use this piece when stunning Klaue. The Faultless Pulse combined with Thor's signature attacks can cause some mega stun damage when fighting Klaue, and the added benefit of Odin Force Assistance lets me regen my heroics super fast if you need to do multiple damage phases. For the slot 2 I am using the stupidly rare Grips of the Storm with targeted buff and Tachin Surge on. I really can't stress how much of a game changer piece this is for a ranged Thor build. He can activate his buffs so fast and easy that you can have a huge amount of uptime on the 2 best damage buffs in the game. You can get this by save scumming events that drop Tachin gear or from the Monica villain sector. Mine only has Might and Valor, which is unfortunate as I would really like the Precision, but as long as you have the Valor it's totally worth it. However, for anyone who doesn't want to farm for something like this, a simple legendary targeted buff piece with good stats like this will still work just fine for all content we have in the game right now. The Grips of the Storm are just overkill for those who want to min-max their build. Next, we have the slot 3, which is a staple of a lot of these endgame builds I have been doing. Vibranium is just the king of the elements at the moment, so Reverberation Breaker is a must for most builds trying to maximize damage. On my one here I would like to swap the Resilience for Might, as Resilience is a pretty worthless stat these days. However, if you are wanting a bit more health and a more survivable Thor, this chest plate of the Thunderer is a great option. It rolls with Resolve, Resilience and Intensity. I have opted to go with a 2-stat version, so we have higher stats over adding Resilience, which as I've mentioned doesn't do a whole lot. While the other 2 perks are okay, the main reason for running this piece is for the Asgard's Insight perk. For anyone who hasn't seen any videos of perks like this in action, to cut a long story short, it gives you a huge amount of heroic regeneration, which on a character like Thor, you can farm this from vaults. The slot 4 is where your options open up a whole lot for Thor, and there are many different options for those. I won't be going into all of them, but let me show you some of my favorites I like to switch between. My first piece you unfortunately can't get anymore, but I want to show it in case it ever comes back or people have one of these laying around in their vault. It's basically just a stat stick for me, giving me 20 damage while overcharged and 20% shock damage, as well as a nice stat spread offering some resolve with precision and valor. The third perk is also a fun one. This perk can basically give you almost unlimited speed boosting while flying, which comes in surprisingly handy in the raid when navigating the Shuri room or the forge. Even in the forge, just making sure you always can get some intrinsic by flying is kind of nice. However, while you can't get the exotic version of this, you can get the legendary, which is arguably better, as you can swap the third perk for something like a Berserker Spark, which is the key perk in how I clear harm rooms so fast with Thor. His ranged attacks have so many hits you can sometimes activate this perk in a single ranged power attack. The first perk does go down from 20% to 12%, which is unfortunate but totally worth it for the crazy amount of heroics we will have. Pairing something like this with some of the pieces I showed earlier with the 2 to 3% heroic regeneration can give some crazy results and give you infinite abilities without using glitches. Here are 2 more versions of this with different stats and perk combinations, so you can look for one of these to match your own build. I will mention these can be farmed super easy by offline vendor farming. Unfortunately, I don't have any dates myself, but I do have a Discord where we share dates for gear. The link for that will be in the description below. There is also instructions on how to do it there as well. Finally, we have the cherry on top for any Thor build these days, a pinpoint vibranium payload artifact. I will warn people now, these are rare and getting one with good stats is ever rarer. Mine isn't bad, I would swap the might for precision if I could, but I will take this one all the same. With this artifact, Thor can apply vibranium to any boss or mobs with almost every throw of his hammer. It will make doing battery damage a breeze. You can make the faultless version of this work against bosses, but for mobbing you 100% want the pinpoint version. While farming for these 2 triple valor artifacts are going to be your bread and butter, or a cosmic surge will always be good if you want some more survivability. Again, there is a million Thor builds out there for anyone who want a skill tree breakdown. I am just going to flash through them. Most of it is pretty self-explanatory after reading the skill. I will leave a link to some other content creators' Thor builds who have much better minutes maxed Thor builds than me. As I mentioned, Thor is one of those characters I have not played a lot of, so my gear is not quite farmed perfectly how I would like it. So, check those guys out to see what a fully perfect Thor can look like. I do still hold my own with him in Test Your Might, so I will leave my last Test Your Might clear against the Klaue enemies at the end here, so you can compare your time to mine. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see my build for all the other character, a playlist will be linked in the description, and be sure to leave any questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching and peace out.